I grew up in New York, and my father had served in the army in New Guinea and the Philippines during the Second World War. He had been studying electrical engineering at the University of Minnesota, and was dragooned into the army with about 8 weeks to go before graduation. Hated getting dragged out of college. Hated the army. Hated getting shot at. Nobody likes getting shot. Got out of the army the instant that he could when the war was over. And yet, when he got to be my age, all he'd talk about was how proud he was at having saved the world. And he and his generation had done exactly that. Since that time, we've had to rely on several other generations of young people who have defended our freedom, our interests abroad and at home, and who have ensured that the service and sacrifice of the people who came before them had not been wasted. Now it's our obligation to make sure that the next generation does the same. That we remember what was done in the name of the United States, in the name of our freedom, so that succeeding generations can do what they need to do in order to keep our country safe, keep our people free. It takes a lot of work. And those of you, I'm preaching to the converted because everybody here is either served or is heavily involved with people who've served. It's not easy to do. My first assignment was in the 82nd Airborne Division. I went airborne because it paid you $110 a month. A new lieutenant made $222.10 a month. I did something really ignorant. I got married when I was 18 years old, so by the time I was commissioned, I had 2 kids. And went airborne because it was a 50% increase in salary. And that wasn't even a lot of money back in those days. Marriage is not recommended. I told my kids not to get married. It's a very bad idea. But if they are going to get married, they should keep their eye peeled for the ideal spouse. The ideal spouse has 2 and only 2 salient characters: incredibly rich and incurably ill. I think it didn't work for me, and my kids didn't listen to it either. They're gloriously happy. I was in the 82nd Airborne Division, and I realized one thing right away that we all have to remember. No, how could it be told?
That would feel the crowning. Yeah.
Well, hold on, because then I have to move on. That's quite all right. I realized right away, and you did too, the instant you put on the uniform, that young people get authority and responsibility at a very early age. I spent a lot of time talking to people who are CEOs, people who own business, and they all say the same thing: we want to hire better. And I ask them, why do you want to hire better? And most of them, if they're not enlightened, say, well, they've served and therefore we owe it to them, as if it's charity. And I tell them, you have no idea what you're talking about. These are the best people you can find anywhere. Indeed, most of them have had authority and responsibility at 19, more than you've got right now. And I think we're turning the tide on that. We're convincing a lot of people that hiring veterans is vitally important for their own good, not for the veterans' good. The veterans know what they're doing. They've had lots of authority and responsibility. About the medal. When I was decorated, there were about 375 living recipients. Today, there are 65. We're really a waning asset. The first dinner I attended, the guy who sat next to me was Eddie Rickenbacker, the agent in the First World War. And we were talking last night about this. One of the guys there at the dinner was a fellow named Bill Seach, who conducted a bayonet charge on the Citadel at Beijing in 1900 during the Boxing Rebellion. He was still alive. And now there are very few of us left, which is why we feel very, very strongly about supporting the kinds of things you're all doing. And we scatter around the country, those of us who can still wander around and get on a plane and so on, to do exactly what I'm doing, what you're all doing now. It's interesting about the medal because it is arbitrary in many respects. And those of us who've been decorated realize that there are lots of people who should be wearing the medal but are not. Somebody once asked Bob Kerrey, how do you wind up getting the Medal of Honor? Bob Kerrey was a governor in Nebraska and was a senator from Nebraska, not to be confused with John Kerry, different person altogether. I asked Kerry one time, he's from Nebraska, I said, how'd you wind up in the Navy? He said, well, I had a low draft. I didn't want to go in the Army, go to Vietnam, got my leg blown off. So instead I joined the Navy, to Vietnam and got my leg blown off. It's a real irony. Navy SEAL and received this Medal of Honor as a Navy SEAL. Somebody once asked him in an interview, what does it take to get the Medal of Honor? And he said, well, you got to do something. People have to see it. They have to be able to write, and they can't beat you. Those are the 4 requirements. You think about all the people who served and have served valiantly and nobody saw it. Or people saw it and they themselves were killed. There was nobody left to witness. Or what often happened, as we know in the case of a lot of people recently who've been decorated retrospectively, the paperwork was accidentally or on purpose lost, destroyed. Ted Rubin was recommended for the Medal of Honor 4 separate times for 4 separate actions. And his first sergeant said, no bleeping Jew will ever get any award in my company. And 50 years later, a couple of the guys whose lives he had saved got together and reinstituted the paperwork, started all over again. Ted's ceremony was the only one other than my own that I attended. 55 years after he had earned the award. So think about all the people who performed valiantly and were never recognized. That's why recipients say that this medal is not ours. We just hold it in trust. And a recipient now gone named Nikki Bacon said, I wear this medal not for me, but for all those who came. When we think about the young people who are in service today, we have to make sure that we don't forget how hard they're working to protect all of us. During the Second World War, there were 19 million people in uniform. Today, we have outsourced the defense of the Republic to a very small number of young men and women who are willing to do it. And we should never, ever forget that we're able to enjoy freedom. Our families are able to enjoy freedom because of those young kids who are out there right now. I want to thank you for everything that you're doing now. But more than that, I want to thank you for everything you're going to. God bless.
It is gratifying to see all these young men and women making a commitment to serve. Today, we have a very, very special moment for you. We have a young man who is going to be representing all the recruits in the United States. We will do something that maybe has never been done before. We're going to have Medal of Honor recipient Jack Jacobs administer the oath of enlistment to our newest Army recruit. Josue, did he run out on us? Oh, there he is. Thought you changed your mind.
I used to know this by heart, but I haven't enlisted anybody in 5 years. Raise your right hand, all right, and repeat after me. All right. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith
and that I will bear true faith
and allegiance to the same,
and allegiance to the same,
and that I will obey the orders
and that I will obey the orders
of the President of the United States
of the President of the United States
and the orders of the officers
and the orders of the officers
appointed over me,
appointed over me,
according to regulations
according to regulations
and the Uniform Code of Military Justice.
and the authorities.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.